welcome everyone. My name is Cara. I'm a product manager at Snowplow, and today I will be talking about how we use Snowplow at Snowplow. So as I said already, my name is Cara. I currently work as a product manager at Snowplow. Previously, I led Snowplow's implementation engineering team. So I've spent a few years working closely with our customers on designing and implementing their data collection strategy. And now also I'm more focused on those bits of the pipeline as well. So before we dive in, I thought it'd be good to quickly review what Snowplow is. So Snowplow is a private SaaS event data collection platform. What does that mean? So Snowplow provides a data collection pipeline directly into customers' own cloud accounts that enables companies to track behavioural data from a variety of different sources. So whether it's websites, mobile apps, servers, emails, or any sort of other third-party applications that support event-based webhooks. So all of this data is collected in a common format. It is then validated and enriched in real time, and then sent to a variety of destinations of choice. This pipeline is available on both AWS and GCP. And so on AWS, the warehouses we support are Redshift and Snowflake. On GCP, we can load the data directly into BigQuery. The data is also available in multiple other places, so you can connect directly to the real-time event stream. If you have real-time use cases, the data can also be loaded into Elasticsearch in real time if you want to do any sort of real-time dashboarding. And of course, also the data can be stored in data lakes such as S3 or Google Cloud Storage. So that's the technology in a nutshell. There's a few other differences that we'll kind of explore as we go along, but this is not meant to be a sales pitch. Really what I want to do today is show you how we actually use our own technology internally for a variety of different use cases. And then also we'll go into detail for a specific use case that we have within the product team and how we tackled that with this solution. So as mentioned already, we use Snowplow extensively in Snowplow. And so the different teams across the organization use Snowplow for a lot of different use cases. This is not a complete list, but just to give you an idea. So for example, our marketing team use Snowplow to measure campaign performance, do marketing attribution, and also understand how the different content pieces that we put on our website are doing. As the product team, we obviously use Snowplow to understand how people are interacting with our product. Specifically, we have a management console that sits on top of the pipeline that people can use to manage various aspects of their pipeline, whether it's the data structures that they define or looking at the number of events that are failing validation and therefore need to be fixed in the tracking code, etc. We want to understand how people are doing those things in our console and how we can improve their experience or help them manage it better. Our TechOps or DevOps team uses our technology to actually monitor all the different pipelines that we run for our customers. So we actually use Snowplow to monitor Snowplow because really Snowplow is a very horizontal technology. It allows ingestion of lots of different types of events, so not just web or mobile specific events as, for example, our marketing team or our product team use, but also very different events that our TechOps team make use of. Our sales team obviously also likes having access to the data, for example, from our website, so they can better understand how prospects have interacted with our content before they've reached the point at which they get in contact with us. So that's another use case. Then, of course, our customer success team use it to understand how our customers engage with us across all the different touch points that we have with them. So not just our console, but also through our support ticketing system and any other channels that we interact with our customers. So as you can see, lots of different use cases across the organization, but today we want to focus on one specifically to actually show you how we use our technology in detail. And so let's actually look at one of the use cases we have in the product team. And so one of the objectives that we currently have is we want to make it easier for companies to get started with Snowplow. So we understand, and probably you are experiencing this right now, giving someone a high-level diagram of our technology doesn't really communicate the power of how the technology works and how it might help your business solve specific problems. And so we want to make that easier. We want to make it easier for people to be able to understand what Snowplow can do for them, and then evaluate whether it's the right solution for them and get started with actually using it. But for that purpose, we realized we actually needed to learn a little bit more about our customers and prospects first. And so the first thing we wanted to investigate is which aspects of our product are actually difficult to understand or see value in. Secondly, what do our customers and open source users value most about our technology and product? And thirdly, how easy is it more generally to see the value in well-structured, high-quality, granular behavioral data? So how easy is it to communicate these various aspects that we focus on within our technology? And for this purpose, we decided to simply add some of the data that the Snowplow pipeline can collect to our website and to see how people engage with it when we do so. And for that purpose, we then set up the following. So first we developed the website content and put that out there. And we then obviously had to implement some tracking. So we already have the basics like page views, heartbeats, link clicks, tracked automatically across all of our digital platforms. But then obviously we needed to add some custom events, and we'll dive into those in more detail to actually understand how people, for example, were interacting with the sample data that we put onto our website, whether they were downloading it, whether they were clicking on specific columns, to get that in-depth understanding of whether or not giving people some raw data to look at and experiment with, whether that would help people understand what Snowplow does and how it might solve their business problems. So then once we added the tracking and had that data coming into our pipeline, we then built a custom data model to present that data that we were collecting in a separate table. So we wanted to remove that data from all of the other types of data that we're collecting through our pipeline to make it really easy for us to quickly iterate on it and derive analysis from it. And we also wanted to use the data model to join in other data sources. So for example, we thought it might be useful to pull in our Salesforce data and see, okay, well, actually, if people are engaging with this, and then afterwards they're reaching out to sales and they're becoming a customer, we want to know that, and we want to put those two things together. So the data model is there to not just restructure and aggregate the data, but also to join in more data from other sources. And that's really one of the great things about having the raw data directly in your own data warehouse, that's actually quite an easy step to do. And then lastly, obviously, we wanted to build a nice dashboard to share with the wider business and more senior stakeholders to show exactly, one, just how people were engaging with these pages, but also then very specific metrics to see, okay, what bits are more interesting than others? What does this mean for like the way people experience Snowplow, and what does this mean for like future experiences we might want to build to, again, feed our objective of making it easier to get started with Snowplow. And so now that I've kind of reviewed the overall objective and how we went about it, let's actually take a look and see what I'm talking about. So going to our website, this is our website, and if we scroll down here, you see the screenshot that I already had in my slides. So this will take us through to the examples that I was talking about. So if we click through to here, we will actually see the big block of sample data that we have added. So if you want to take a look yourself, you can see this is a lot of columns. So Snowplow data is very, very granular. And again, that makes it very, very important for us to not just track the overall engagement with the page, but actually to track in depth exactly how people are interacting with this table, whether or not they're expanding different features, to really understand, are people engaging with this? Is this interesting to people, or is this actually just more confusing than anything else? And so to take a look at the tracking, we'll just look at this through our browser inspector. So this is a browser inspector built by our partners Poplin in Australia. They very kindly built this, and it's a great way to see what Snowplow events are being tracked while we explore these pages. One thing to note is that there will be multiple of the same event always being tracked every time I do something. This is just because we have multiple versions of our technology running on our website, mainly to provide data for our engineering team to develop against and use as staging environments. So yeah, just that as a caveat. So if I clear the events and then just do a refresh, then you'll see a page view being tracked here. So this is just an out-of-the-box Snowplow event. This is the pipeline that we'll be using. So I'll take a look at this event. And so you can see this is just a page view. And you can see there's a lot of properties being tracked out of the box. So this is just very simple. You can see I've had over 400 sessions on our website. I come here a lot. All of the out-of-the-box properties that we collect. And so all of these are being sent to our data warehouse into a table that looks a little bit bigger than these fields that you can see here. And just to give you a quick example, let's actually take a look in our Redshift. So this is our Redash, our internal BI tool that we use. And this is just sitting directly on top of our Redshift. This is the same pipeline that we've just seen the events go into from our website. And just as an example, here I've written some SQL that will just pull the number of page views and the number of sessions I have had on our website, looking at specifically just the pages from this experience that we have added in the last 31 days, so in the last month. So if I execute that, this might take a second, there we go. So you'll see I've had 28 page views and 18 sessions in the last month. So this is, again, just using the out-of-the-box tracking that we already had on our website. We then went in and added some custom tracking. So for example, when I expand this column details here, I'll get an interaction event. This is one of the self-described events or custom events that we defined as part of this experience. And so you'll see here there's some additional data being tracked. So actually we're tracking a type click, and the object is a column and the value is core data. So we're doing a column detail expand for the core data, which is these core fields that are displayed over here. So this is some additional data that we wanted to capture, and we've got these interaction events for lots of different things. So for example, as I scroll along, you'll see there's more and more and more interaction events coming in. So we've really added lots and lots of granular data to understand exactly how far do people scroll, what do people look at. All of this data, again, is going into our Redshift cluster. So as you can guess, that's probably quite a lot of data because we've made it very, very granular. And to give you an example, I'll just show you the number of raw events from these pages in the last month. So if I execute this SQL, this will just count the number of page views we've had from these pages in the last 30 days and the number of interaction events. And you can see like the number of pages isn't too bad, but there's a lot of visibility events. So the visibility events are the ones where you're scrolling past columns. So really that's a lot of data, and that probably is difficult to work with from an analysis point of view. And so that's where kind of we leave the tracking stage, that one of the boxes I had in my slides, and we move on to the data modeling step. So this is where we take all of this raw data and aggregate it up into a set of derive tables. In this case, only one derive table that we built, to make it a little bit more easier to work with this data. And so because we have full flexibility of how we want to set up this model, we thought about, okay, well, what's actually the thing that we're interested in? We're really interested in understanding how people are interacting with this raw data to see whether or not this raw data is interesting to people, if it helps them understand. And then we probably want some information around that. So we probably want to know, where did they come from and where did they go after they've looked at this. So for example, if someone looks at this data and then afterwards goes to the careers page, that's a very different signal than someone looking at this and then afterwards going to the pricing page. So that's kind of the type of information we wanted to add. We also wanted to add things like location to understand, okay, well, maybe these are performing differently in different demographics, geographies, I mean, and also we wanted to understand, does this perform differently on web versus mobile, for example? Because we could imagine looking at this big table here, it might not be so nice to look at this on a mobile device. So once we had all this data coming into our data warehouse, we started to build a data model. And so we saved all the SQL in GitHub, and then we use our open source SQL runner technology to run these SQL files on a schedule to continually update the derived tables. You could also use other data modeling tools to do this, such as dbt or Airflow, but we use our own tooling there. And so what this does is it takes all of these raw events that you've just seen, and it aggregates them into one row per journey. And by journey, we mean one, like a mini session inside of a session where people are interacting with these pages. And so we'll have the actual session referrers. So when people come to our website, where did they come from? Did they come from Google? Did they come from a LinkedIn ad? Did they come organically? But then we'll also want the referrer, so that actually is the session referrer here. But then we'll also want the journey referrer. So how did they come into these specific pages? Did they go just as I just did when I came through the home page, the main button, or did they come through another page, another button on the website? So we want to understand how they got there. We then also want to understand where they went afterwards. And then specifically, we want to understand in lots of detail exactly how they behaved. So what was the total time engaged on these pages? And also what was the total time engaged in the entire session? How many raw data headers did they expand and look at in more detail? How many raw columns did they see? Did they download the data at all using the download button? So these are all aspects that we can calculate from these visibility and click events that we're capturing, and of course the page views and the heartbeats that are being tracked automatically, aggregating all of that up into this table that has these nice metrics that we can then really nicely surface in a dashboard. So that SQL runs all the time, takes all of this data, and then we use this table to build the dashboard, which is kind of the last step of the last piece of the puzzle. And I've made a very simplified dashboard of the one that we actually have, just because I don't want to leak any sensitive information. But this is just a sample of all the data that we have collected over the time that this has been up for, and some of the types of analyses that we're able to very easily do once we've built this derived table. So for example, as I already gave as an example before, like we want to know the top 5 pages that people came into the experience from. So that predominantly, as we can see here, is the home page, but it could also be the Snowplow Insights product page. It could be from external sources. So whether it's one of our AEs sending this page in an email link, or whether it's a LinkedIn post, for example, and then some other pages on our website. The next thing, of course, is also very interesting to see the subsequent pages. So what were the most common subsequent pages that people looked at after they had looked at this page? And so it's very promising to see that actually the most common subsequent page is the pricing page. So that's giving us the idea that maybe this is quite interesting, and people are interested to understand how much this solution might cost after they've seen it. That's definitely showing some interest. And then just some overall metrics. So for example, how many sessions have we had in this sample that we're looking at, and what was the average time engaged with these pages in this sample? Again, this is very high level. You would be able to get this kind of information with most analytics tools pretty straightforward. But then we wanted to build some more specific analyses around exactly how people are engaging with the raw data. Again, going back to that objective of like, we're really trying to make it easier. We're trying to learn about how people evaluate Snowplow so that we can make it easier, and so that we can maybe build a solution that people can try out before they purchase Snowplow, to really understand if Snowplow is going to work for their use case. And we thought providing raw data is a great way for people to see that. They're able to download that data, they're able to experiment with the data, they're able to see the granularity and structure of data that they would get. And so we want to validate that. We want to see actually, like, do people engage with this? How much do they engage with this? And is there any correlation between the people that engage with this more and the people that actually reach out to us, request a demo, talk to our sales team, and then become customers or open source users? And so this is where we start building more in-depth analyses. So For example, we built an engagement funnel. Again, this is pretty simple to build based on top of the aggregated table, which it would be much harder to build based on all of the individual rows, and also very computationally expensive every time someone refreshes this dashboard. And so what we've done here is just look at like how many people look at the entire, look at the raw data table at all, and then how many people, what percentage of those people actually scrolls, and then how many people actually scroll all the way to the end. And we can see a quarter of people that look at this table actually scroll all the way to the end. And I can tell you the table has about 130 columns, so it's pretty wide. So that's pretty encouraging to see actually that most people find this really interesting and actually scrolling all the way to the end and looking at all of the columns that you would get with Snowplow data. So that's exciting. Then we can see the average number of columns people have seen on web and the average number of columns that people have seen on mobile. So that's just something that's very easy to filter for us to apply, because as you can see in the raw events that I showed you initially, like we capture the user agent with every single event, and then in the pipeline, in the enrichment phase, we take that user agent and we, based on different libraries, we look up certain properties. And so, for example, we add a flag whether or not it's a web device or a mobile device. And so then it's very easy for me in my data model to just add a Boolean to each row and say, is this web or mobile? And then therefore it's very easy for me in my dashboard to say, actually, I want to see the difference between web and mobile users. And so you can see the difference is pretty big, and that's kind of expected. I can't imagine looking at this kind of massive table on a mobile phone is super fun. So you'd expect that kind of difference. And then we can see there's been 90 downloads in this sample of the raw data. Again, very encouraging to see that people are downloading the data and playing with it, maybe in Excel or maybe uploading it to a Postgres instance and writing some SQL queries on it, just to see what the data is like and whether or not they can do the things they would want to do with the data that they have. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview as to how you can go from a simple thing of saying, okay, we're going to put some data on our website, we want to understand how people use this, go through the different steps of adding the tracking, seeing the events come in, think about how we want to use those events, build a data model to aggregate them up, join in the other data sources, and then display it in a nice dashboard for everyone in the business to look at and understand and make decisions based on. So that's in a nutshell how we use Snowplow at Snowplow. But just to kind of round things off, some of the reasons, and probably this has come through already, but the reasons we like Snowplow at Snowplow, I mean, obviously we probably don't have super loads of choices to what analytics solution we use internally, but we actually really like working with Snowplow, or I really like working with Snowplow. I actually instrumented all of the things that I showed you today, so I'm really speaking from experience here. The first thing is the technology is super, super flexible. So it's really easy for us to create custom events and custom modeling logic. Snowplow's custom event functionality is a little bit different to other providers. We require actually schemaing all of these events up front. Again, we've got a super easy UI to do that. That means that the data that comes into the data warehouse is really nicely structured, which then makes it really easy to write models on top of that and pre-aggregate that data into ways that then makes building dashboards really easy. So that's the first benefit. The second is that data is centralized. So because the data goes from all of the different places we collect it, it all goes into we use Redshift, so it goes into our Redshift, but whatever data warehouse you use, it goes into your data warehouse, where you can then also obviously ETL in there the data you have from CRM or transactional databases, but you can also via webhooks ingest other types of data. As I mentioned already earlier, for example, we get our support ticketing data from Zendesk, we get that into the Snowplow pipeline as well. So we're able to really easily join data sets from different places, and that's super, super important, especially when you have a B2B, more complicated product. It's really important to be able to look at a single customer across all their touch points and understand what's going on. So for us, this is a big plus. Then the data is very easy to work with. All of the data gets validated, as I showed in the pipeline diagram at the beginning, based on the schemas that you provide. So I know that the data that comes into the warehouse is going to be structured the way I wanted it to be. while at the same time putting no limitations on what data I can put in. So that flexibility, while at the same time maintaining that high level of structure and that high quality, is really, really great to quickly set up stuff, quickly iterate on dashboards and build out new things. Makes that all very, very easy. I don't have to spend any time exploring the data, trying to understand the data. I can just get started with building stuff immediately. And then the last thing is it's super extendable. And especially as a product manager, for me, it's really important, like continually as we learn new things, we want to go back and we want to update, not just the tracking, but also the modeling. As we learn, for example, like we started off just looking at like how are people engaging with this raw data. We then realized like that in and of itself is not very interesting if we don't understand where people go after, because we could just be looking at a load of people who are applying for jobs at Snowplow and they're looking at this data to familiarize themselves with our product. And so we want to filter out and we want to only look at the people who are actually looking at our product or pricing pages after and are not looking at the careers site, or people who maybe even request a demo with our sales team and then reach out. So we want that extra information. And because we have our own data model that runs on top of the raw data, we can easily go and change that. And then we can rerun it over the entire history of raw data that we have to make sure that all of our reports reflect our new findings. And so that's really, really useful as well. So that's the end of my talk. I hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions, do submit them. I believe they are taking questions. Also, do feel free and come find us at the Snowplow booth. We'd love to talk to you if you have any use cases that you think Snowplow might be a solution for, and we'd be happy to share our thoughts and explain how that might work. Thank you so much.